Ignore him, George, I said. I bit my bottom lip. You're right. Do you think anyone will notice that one little mistake when the book is read as a whole? There are other mistakes, so maybe it won't stick out. But Sage, you should try and make this your best writing if you're still planning on submitting it to the contest. George looked at me with his brown and gold eyes. Are you still planning on submitting this story? Of course, why not? And when I told Mom I was going to, she got all excited. 2 writers in the same family. We went and bought the same paper together. A ream, you know. Has your mom read Angelica yet? George asked. Well, she looked at it, but she's saving the reading till I win. Then she'll come over to school and listen to it there. Every morning. George's eyes rolled back into his head. Let's talk about this little problem, I said. Except for one teeny thing, what do you think? I didn't wait for an answer. I think it's my absolute best. I'm very proud of this. In fact, George, I'm thinking of submitting it to a real publisher after the school contest.
Oh my God.
George closed his eyes and swallowed. What? He asked in a soft voice. Maybe my mom's, but let's not think too far ahead. I could tell by looking at him that George is my biggest fan. I'm his too. Sage has got another boyfriend, came a whiny voice. There. Morgan's toes stuck out from behind the drapes near the window. Really? There. I walked over to where he was hiding and jerked back the flowered material. Hello, Morgan said. Go on up to your room. You know what Mother said about you interrupting my life. Yes, said Morgan. She said it was natural for a boy my age to spy on his older sister because I looked up to you and want to be like you. She also said you're to leave me alone. I can listen in on your conversations too. Now go. Morgan took his time crossing the thick blue carpet. But aren't you going to kiss each other? He asked, wiggling his bottom as he walked, like they do on TV. George looked like he felt a little better. Should we, Morgan? Not you and me, Morgan said, and made a cross of 2 fingers and pointed it at George. George laughed. No, should Sage and I kiss? Can I watch if you do? Morgan asked. Absolutely not, I said. Get out. No, wait, Morgan. I have a question for you, George said. Don't give him a reason to stay. I wanted to talk about Angelica. I went and sat in a wing-back chair. No, really, it's okay. George patted the sofa next to him. Let's visit, old pal. Morgan hurried over to George. Does Sage kiss the other guy she brings in here? George asked, grinning big at me. He moved his eyebrows up and down a few times. You might not like the answer, I said. You just might not. Said Morgan, shaking his head. But they all try to kiss her. Isn't that gross? George nodded. He looked a little tight-lipped. I knew he wouldn't like the answer. It sure is gross. Now what about that boob guy? Morgan screeched with laughter. The boob guy, he said. The boob guy. Well, George asked. There aren't any guys with boobs that come here. Morgan laughed so hard I thought he might fall off the sofa. No, George said. I mean Bob Taylor. Oh, him.
I forgot that's what his name was.
Yeah, he really tries. At least he did the other night. I stood up with my hands on my hips. I don't like it when you spy on me, Morgan, I said. I feel furious. What was that? George asked. What did he try? Goodbye, Morgan, I said, and that's none of your business, George. Morgan looked sideways at me. He pushed her down on the sofa and everything. George jumped to his feet and I sat back. You're the only one who never tries anything with Sage, Morgan said. What do you mean by anything? George asked. His voice sounded a little like steam coming from a tea kettle. Morgan shrugged. That's what Sage always says. I keep watching to see if anything ever happens, but it doesn't. Have you learned enough yet? I asked George. I would like him to leave. I like you the best, George, Morgan said. Yeah? George asked. Yeah, funny stuff happens when you're around. Sage reads that dumb book about kissing to you, and you roll your eyes and make weirdo faces when she's not looking. Time for you to run to your room, George said. He jerked Morgan up and gave him a shove towards the door. What funny faces? I asked. You make funny faces while I'm reading? Not always, said Morgan. Sometimes he shakes his head a lot. From happiness, George said to me. Goodbye, Morgan. Want to go to the movies with us sometime soon? Yeah, said Morgan. Will you take me to a scary show? Sage is afraid to go to those. We'll see, George smiled a big, fake smile, if you go right now. A horn beeped outside, and Morgan leaped off the sofa and ran out the room, screeching, "Daddy's home! Daddy's home!" "Such a cute kid," said George. He did have a weirdo look on his face. "George, do you like Angelica and the Seminole Indians? Be honest."
Oh no.
George didn't answer.
George.
Instead, he asked, "Sage, what all does Boob try with you? The jerk?" I moved close to George and looked up at him. I touched his arm and imagined him in Indian garb. Would he be willing to wrestle a bear for me? I wanted to rest my head on George's chest, but I didn't. Instead, I said, "George, I am waiting for my own Indian lover." He smiled at me, a nice, slow smile. "How?" he said. I laughed. "Oh, George, Indians don't say things like that." I stepped back a bit and picked up my manuscript where I'd left it on the floor. "Now tell me, do you like Angelica and the Seminole Indians?" George let out a great sigh, then closed his eyes. "Kimosabi!" "Tell me, George." "Sage," George said, opening his eyes, then moving to sit on the sofa. "Before I answer that question, let me ask you one. Would you stop writing just because I said I didn't like it?" "No, of course not," I said. "I never have before." "I see." George took a deep breath. "I like this book as much as I have liked any of your other Angelica stories." I beamed at him. "That's what I thought."
Sage is a stupid hoe.
And that's what I thought about that chapter.
Did you like it about as much as you liked all the other chapters? Sage is a racist.
Sage has some weird fantasies.
About 247 bears.
Okay, that could not go over well. They would just eat her on principle.
Nope. They're gonna make her their squaw.
Oh my god.
So, okay. You gotta wrap this up.
How?
I don't think there's anything left to say. They can't see you.
Bye.
Bye. Goodbye, friends. We are gone.
So fluid that I so consider do it and stop his rage with a hot kettle and a lonely gun. 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 So changed, a bit off a piece of good chew. So strange to bury all the bullets I thought were true with a